Welcome back to Crossroads. You know, the Republican National Convention is coming to town in a week, and thousands of delegates will be here, and a lot of businesses were hoping to profit from the foot traffic. But everybody's not so happy about that. We'll talk about that situation in a minute. But first, in the newsroom, we have Crossroads political expert A.L. Brown. Thank you so much, A.L., for being here this morning on the program.
Thanks for having me.
Now, you know, anytime something happens, we've got to have you on so you can shed some light on it. Barack Obama Saturday made his choice about his vice presidential running mate, Joe Biden. Why this selection?
Well, I think he needed someone who had the foreign experience to deal with his shortcomings on that issue. He's been hit pretty hard by John McCain as to whether or not he's prepared to lead. You've got the Russians making very aggressive moves in that part of Europe, and it's got some people on edge. And so with John McCain, for whatever reason, having the American people to believe that he is a foreign affairs expert, Barack Obama needed to shore it up. And so Joe Biden was a great choice. He is the chair of the Senate Relations Committee. He has been in the Senate for over 30 years now or so. And the better thing about Joe Biden, I think, is, and more importantly, is on the campaign trail, because foreign affairs really gets to how you intend to govern. And I don't doubt that any politician would ultimately, once they get into the position and surround themselves, there's not many choices we have when it comes to foreign affairs. We don't have the option of military force because we're so spread thin in Iraq and Afghanistan. Domestically, we kind of can't afford another war. And so Joe Biden, any politician who gets in office is going to have very limited choices. But Joe Biden's going to be extremely effective on the campaign trail. He's a fighter. I remember watching him in the debates and saying, texting a buddy and saying, that guy's a beast. His ability to just go after his opponents in a way that was smart, articulate, and believable is almost second to none.
Wow. Well, thank you for shedding light on that issue. And we're going to come back to you in just a minute because we want to talk about, we know the Democrats are gearing up for their big convention in Denver, but here in the Twin Cities next week, there is the Republican National Convention. And a lot of people and businesses in the Twin Cities wanted to get in on the action, get a piece of the pie that's coming in. Millions of dollars are going to be spent. And to the dismay of many African-American business owners, there was an article written in the Minnesota Spokesman Recorder newspaper, and the title says Republican Convention hosts overlooks black businesses. And here with us today to talk about the article is the author, Mr. Charles Harmon. Thank you so much for being here, Charles. We appreciate you coming by on Crossroads.
Thank you very much.
Now, how did you come to this story?
Well, I always do stories on events that's being brought into the city from an angle of, when they always talk about so much money is coming in, I always like to see why that's coming down to the black community. And this has been symbolic of big events, even dating back to 1991 when the Super Bowl came here, where when you ask questions where the money's going to, they will say, oh, well, it's going here, it's going there. But when you filter it down, it rarely comes down to the black community. So that's what I was pursuing. And this is not about the National Convention people, because they like a traveling circus. They're going to come in and leave town. It's the people who usually organize these events. Those are the local people. And unfortunately, these people are always the same people on these committees that host big events like Super Bowl, Final Four, such as that. And they don't seem to have an idea, or they're not willing to push it further in terms of making sure that diversity is really fully seen.
Now, you're shaking your head. I want you to introduce this gentleman for me, because he's one of the people that you talked to for your article.
Renato Lyles was a person I met at a meeting at Golden Time Coffee Shop in St. Paul. They was talking about black business empowerment. And I was just wanted to get a touch base with black businesses firsthand. He gave me a story about how he had tried to contact the group, and he never really got a real good response, which was clear to when I was talking to them. I made so many phone calls, and only one person returned my phone call, and that was a mouthpiece for one of the committee people. And so therefore, you get that running around business. I want to say, okay, if I'm the only one getting to run around, I found out he said he got some run around with that, and I talked to some other people who didn't want to be identified in the story, but they also got to run around. That put everything together. That they had this big meeting and explained, how they could get connected, but in the long haul of it, nothing happens. It's a show type of purpose.
So tell me, Mr. Lau, you felt like you were up against a roadblock.
Well, it's not so much that up against a roadblock with this committee. I think, to your point earlier, it's more of the leadership within the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul. We have black leaderships that doesn't seem to be stepping up for these conventions. I'm like, you could probably take it to the Civil Rights Department for the whole Minneapolis area, Minneapolis, St. Paul. They should have been in on those meetings. They should have been advocating for people of color, women-owned, minority-owned businesses. And I don't think that they stepped up to the plate. I don't think it has anything to do with whether it was the Republican National Convention coming in, the Democratic National Convention coming in. I think it was more of, like you said, a convention came in, traveling circus atmosphere. We should have had players at the table demanding that, or at least mentioning that those dollars that would be coming in got shared somewhat equally.
And so tell me about your business. What type of services were you trying to provide?
Sure. As far as what I have, Wi-Fi technology, we deal with creating mobile application development. One of the avenues I saw would be a big advantage for us with any other event is being able to do mobile registration, where people would line up or sign up either online, and when they come to the event, we check them off via the mobile devices. That was one avenue that my company would be able to provide for the convention.
And you tried to make calls, got nowhere.
Yeah, I went to they had an event that May 7th, and went to that event trying to find the appropriate contacts. Made a few calls the following months and didn't get a response back from anyone. I can't remember the gentleman's name right off, but he was supposedly in charge of spending the money, as it was put to me, and we weren't able to make any headway with that particular individual.
Now, A.L. Brown is still with us in the newsroom, and A.L. has read the article. A.L., what's your take on that?
You know, I'm listening to, I believe it's Lau speak about the civil rights, St. Paul human rights and so forth getting involved. I'm the chair of the St. Paul Human Rights Commission, and we've been struggling with minority contractors and trying to find the best means of making sure that there's equal access in the city of St. Paul for everyone. And I think we really have to parse this. I read the article and I thought to myself, well, what we have here is some individuals who didn't get business as it relates to the Republican convention, and they're minorities. And they've made the connection, at least as I read the article, that there's a relationship between their race and their lack of business. I think we got to be very careful about that. There is a difference between being intentionally exclusive because of someone's race and then being insensitive to what diversity can bring to a convention. And I'm not sure where the Republican Party falls on this. Now, I'm the last person to defend the Republican Party, but or their convention. But I do think we have to, as a community, be much more careful about what we say about individuals' motives, because it's isolating. If the issue in the article is that the minority businesses didn't get contracts, that they didn't get phone calls returned, so forth and so on, that's one thing. If it's that they didn't get it because they were black, that's a whole nother can of worms that requires a whole nother level of analysis and response. And I think we have to be clear about which is which.
Now, Charles, what's your goal? What's your goal in writing the article? What do you hope people get from it? Because it's gotten a lot of attention, got a lot of people talking, which is good, about people who have their own businesses, who are people of color. What's your goal in doing this? What do you hope to get out of it?
Well, I want people to understand that diversity has to be more than just a word. It has to include, when you talk about being inclusive, it has to be a full effort towards that. You know, I don't care if black businesses don't get any money if you feel those businesses not qualified or doesn't can serve the purposes. But if you just say, "Oh, we are inclusive," but when the bottom line, "Oh, we had a couple of meetings, but you didn't do those type of things," you know. And I don't know if I never want to say it's intentional, but I just say that you have to be fully aware. If you are claiming you're diverse, then you have to have somebody in that room that say, you know, but what about this group here? What about that group here? And you don't seem to see that. You know, these committees always seem to have a select group of people, and then they don't seem to have the wherewithal to say, okay, we need to take one more step. We need to take one more phone call. We need to take one more effort. And then if you do that and nothing happens, that's a different story.
Well, you guys, we could talk about this all day, and we'll be talking about it after the show, and we hope you guys will be talking about it as well. Thank you for tuning in. Have a great rest of the weekend.